there.
Welcome, councillors. This is live stream meeting of the Grove Scrutiny Committee at Bolsover District Council. This is a public meeting being streamed live to YouTube and via the council website. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn the meeting until the connection has been re-established. This meeting is also being recorded. Can the facilitator confirm who is in remote attendance at this meeting, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First of all, I will do a roll call of the councillors that are in remote attendance, and I will go through each councillor's name and please ask each councillor to confirm their name, tell us their ward, and also confirm that they can see and hear me okay. So first of all, Councillor Tom Munro.
Good morning, Councillor Tom Munro, Whitwood Ward. Yes, I can see and hear you quite clearly. Good morning, everybody.
Councillor Jen Wilson.
Yes, I can hear and see everybody clearly, and I'm on Shower board.
Councillor Derek Adams joining us from the council chamber.
Yes, Derek Adams, Bolsover South. I can see and hear everybody. Thank you very much.
Councillor David Dixon.
Yeah, Councillor David Dixon, Barbara Ward. I can hear and see everything. Thank you.
Thank you. From the Chamber, Councillor Liz Smith.
Yes, hello, Councillor Liz Smith, Old Hucknall Ward and Cabinet Member for Economic Development.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Kane from the Chamber.
Yeah, Councillor Chris Kane, Sharbuck North Ward. I can hear you all right, Tom.
Thank you. Councillor Tom Kirkham.
Councillor Tom Kirkham, Hucknall Ward. I can see and hear you. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Jim Clifton.
Councillor Jim Clifton, Elmsworth, Cresswell, Althorpe and Bell, vision and sound okay, thank you.
And from the Chamber, Councillor Mary Dooley.
Yes, Tom, I can hear and see you.
Thank you very much. In addition to that, we also have a number of officers in remote attendance as well. We have the Solicitor to the Council Monitoring Officer, Sarah Sternberg, the Deputy Monitoring Officer, Vicky Dawson. Also here to help us present reports are Ian Barber, Kath Drury, Di Parker, and from Governance is myself, Tom Scott, and Liz Robinson as well. And I'll hand back to you, Chair. So thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask the facilitator to explain the procedures for this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Before we start the meeting, members are reminded of the meeting etiquette that has been circulated to them. All members should have their microphones off during the meeting unless you wish to speak and you've been called on. Members attending remotely, please leave your cameras on during the meeting. Also for remote members, to request to speak, please use the chat function to type speak or raise your hand on camera. The Chair will then call on you to speak during the discussion debate. When a vote is to be taken, this will be by a show of hands. For those attending remotely, please ensure your hand is visible on camera. If any member is disconnected from the meeting, please try to rejoin as quickly as possible. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact one of the support officers assigned to this meeting in my email to you. If you're about to speak, the meeting will wait a few moments for you to rejoin. I will now hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got an announcement to make before I start the formal apologies for absence. I would like us all to take a brief moment to remember our colleague James Watson, who recently died. Can we just have a moment or two of silence, please? Thank you. All right, good morning once again. I'd like to start the meeting by asking for apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies for absence from Councillor Sandra Peake, Councillor Peter Roberts and Councillor Tricia Clough. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. Item 2 is urgent items of business. Has anybody got any? Unfortunately, I have. I've already made arrangements with Christopher Kane, and I want the committee to do it. There is a possibility I might have to leave the meeting due to we've got a vet coming out, and I'm afraid we need 2 adult hands before we start to do anything with the vet. So if this arises, I will have to leave the meeting, and we'll sort that out as we carry on. Right, item 3 is declarations of interest. Has anyone got any declarations of interest?
Nobody's got the hand raised, Chair.
Right, thank you. If anybody finds anything as we go along that they don't need to declare an interest, I'm sure you will let us know. Item 4 is the minutes, which commence on page 5. Has anybody got anything they wish to say on page 5, 6 or 7? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13. In that case, could I ask for a proposer, please?
I'll move there a true record, Chair.
Thank you.
Seconded,
Could I?
Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I have a show of hands for all in favour?
That's everybody in favour, Chair.
All right, thank you. That's carried. Now we move to item 5, which is on page, commences on page 14.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take this one. This is the list of key decisions. It's not a new list, it's the October list. And the 3 reports there have all been through executive already. Just a reminder on key decisions lists, if you do need any information on any of the items on the list, you should go to the officer named in the item who will be able to give you detailed answers. But in terms of the 3 that are before you, they've all been dealt with.
Thank you. So we will now move on to item. Sorry, did anybody want to ask any question?
Chair,
I think we
Councillor
have to
Councillor
actually-
Munro would like to
We have
speak.
to agree that item. We have to move and agree that item, Chair. And having looked through the items, I'm prepared to move that we accept that we note, or whatever it is we've got to do.
Right.
The report is not what we've got to do, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll move.
Yeah.
We note the report, Chair.
Right, thank you. And
I'll second that, Chair.
Perfect, thank you, Chris Kane. All in favour, could we have a show of hands, please?
That's everybody in favour, Chair.
Right, thank you for that. We'll now move to item, are we on 5 or 6? 6,
Yeah, you're on item 6, Chair.
right, and that commences on page 15 to 25.
And I think Chair Kath Drawer is here to do this item.
Kath, when you're ready, if you'd like to come in, we'll be pleased to hear from you.
Thanks, Chair. So, as noted, this is the growth scrutiny performance report for Q2. So this is covering the period July to September. I'll just run through the covering report first that members have got in front of them. So these are the council targets that are to support the council's ambition. These are the ones primarily under the aim of our economy driving growth, promoting the district and being business and visitor friendly. And as you can see, there are 11 targets in total. All 11 council targets are on track. In addition, we have 5 service indicators, quarterly ones, and they're also have returned a positive outturn for Q2. And then we pulled across some half-yearly indicators that used to be in the former growth report that supported the previous growth strategy. 5 of those indicators, 2 have returned a positive outturn and 3 are negative at the halfway stage. And I'll cover those when I come across the actual appendix to this report. Just to remind members that there are quite a few strategies in development at the moment. So we've got business growth strategy for this area, a housing strategy, empty properties and tourism strategy. So there's a lot of strategic work that's being drafted. And obviously there's work happening in these areas already. So it's not as though this work that's not being developed at this point in time as part of the council's recovery action. But once those strategies become formally approved, we'll be looking to bring across relevant indicators and report it under this report so members can keep abreast of those new strategies as well. So you can see from the recovery report that it's a largely positive report. But I will pick out some things on the appendix just for a little bit of further information. So on the appendix that lists the details, which has got the updates from the officers, just a few things to note. So under EPO 1, this is all to do with the business growth strategy. Just to confirm that Chris Fridlington has confirmed that the strategy will be still on track to be approved by March 2021. And I understand that Chris will be attending the informal meeting, your informal meeting in January to discuss that strategy. So you can see from the update there, a lot of work is happening now under the council's economic recovery plan. At the same time, they're developing the longer term strategy as well. So these two things are working hand in hand. On target 02, just to note that is currently showing a negative figure. So this is the business growth one. We've left it on track for now because it's got until March 2023. So obviously there's still a few years to go on measuring the business growth. But as members are aware, businesses are obviously taking quite a hit in the district as a result of COVID, and currently the business growth indicator is showing as a negative by £279,000 at this point in time, at the half-year point. Okay, just to note, under 04, the housing strategy has slipped a little bit, but it's still expected to be adopted by February 21, so not a major slippage there, and obviously the office has been very upfront and provide that information to members. Just a note under 05 that whilst we only report on this figure formally, the annual target for new build, looking at the evidence on site, the officer expects this to be on track for this year. So that's good informal information at this stage. Just to report under 06, this is the average units of affordable accommodation. The outturn for last year, 1920, was actually higher than was reported. When the figures all came through and were verified, it was actually 38 affordable homes and not 28. So just to make members aware of that upwards revision. You can see from 07 a good update there regarding Bolsover homes and which sites are going forward in the activities in place there. And under Eco 10, this is working with partners to grow the visitor economy, number of tourists and spend by 2023. I understand there was a question asked at pre-meet, which I think members may have been given additional information this morning on that. But essentially, I think there was some confusion as to whether the consultation in that update was referring to the business growth strategy. And the officer has clarified that, not the business growth strategy, sorry, the tourism strategy. I did say there's a lot of strategies under development. The tourism strategy, so it's just to make the distinction that the tourism strategy has already been consulted on and brought to your committee, and now it's having some work around the accessibility chapter, which I think was feedback from the committee, and then it will be brought back again to this committee before final approval. I think the confusion was around the cycling, the draft cycling infrastructure strategy, which is a work stream within the tourism strategy, and that will be going out for consultation. I think, just check on the update. Be after Christmas, I'm thinking, yes. So it's a different strategy and a different consultation time frame, but hopefully from the update, the additional information given in the papers that you've received, and hopefully that's explained that. So there's no delay to the tourism strategy. The reference to consultation in the update is referring to the draft cycling infrastructure strategy. So hopefully that's clarified things for members there. Okay, moving on to other aims, other council aims, but relevant targets for this committee. Under 08, this is the empty properties one. We've left this on track for now, even though we know at this point in time the outturn is only one empty property has been brought back into use, providing 2 units of accommodation. But you can see from the update that we're expecting 5 units of accommodation to come through the former old co-op building. There's quite a lot of activity with environmental health and planning enforcement to bring to take action on 4 empty properties, and some other updates there. So there's a lot of activity on here. So I think it's we're mindful to give the officer a little bit longer on this target to see if the 5 will come through for this year. Moving on to the service indicators, then you can see obviously planning are all good. They're all on or above targets, so no issues on the planning side of things. And then some of the half yearly indicators we've brought across, you can see on the income ones essentially. So these are the income that we expect over and above the budget figure on our business unit. So obviously the tangent, Plesley Vale, and you can see the original 2021 target, the budget target, so that would be the surplus that was anticipated, and you can see the outturns there, the half-year outturns, and obviously they're all showing as negative. So they're all below target at this point in time. Probably not that surprising, bearing in mind that obviously COVID has affected businesses quite severely. You can see from the exceptions, there's been some information provided there regarding those figures. I think we also need to bear in mind as well that these figures come directly from the budget, from the financial management system, and very often things are charged for a whole year. So expenditure is normally charged for the whole year. So that puts the budget in a negative, and then income comes in, which then returns it to profit. Obviously, the amount of rent coming through is not the same as would be expected. And also the amount of electricity being used or being charged for is obviously lower as well. So quite a lot of fluctuation on the budgets. And I think two of the budgets, the Tangent and Plesley Vale, will be revised at the half-year figure to reflect the reality that the income is going to be down on those. No different to the information I presented to other scrutinies regarding council tax collection rates and business rate collection rates, where once again individuals have been affected by COVID, and income is down there as well. Okay, so that is the report, Chair. So that covers the report and the appendix and the pre-meet question that we was asked. So that's everything from me at this point.
Right, thank you for that, Kath. We appreciate it immensely. Do you want to ask, have any questions asked, Kath, if there are any?
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, questions as usual.
Yep. Anybody got any questions?
Chair, we I believe Councillor Dooley indicated. Is that true, Councillor Dooley? No, she's shaking her head. Okay. Chair, I've got requests to speak from Councillor Tom Munro, Councillor Adams and Councillor David Dixon.
Right, well, we'll take them in that order then. We'll start with Councillor Tom Munro.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. Councillor Tom Munro, Whitwell Ward. Can I thank you first of all, Kath, for your report? Can I just make an observation in terms of consistency across the authority? Yesterday at the Health, Safe, Clean and Green scrutiny, when we had the quarter outturn report, all those targets that were unavoidably affected or impacted by COVID-19 have been given a purple coding. And I think that might have helped in this case too, because some of those in red, for example, are clearly really purple. There's not much we can do about them. So I just wondered if you want to go back and see if there's a kind of authority standard that ought to be applied, certainly, whatever we've got the ongoing crisis. So that's my first observation. Now, just if I may, to pick up a couple of things, and I don't make no apologies for them being Whitwell based, but they do address the issues that Kath has highlighted. So the first one refers to, if I may, Eco 07, and I'm delighted to report, as will be backed by Ian Barber, that all of the contracts except Sandy Lane and Thorpe Avenue, which are scheduled for March 2021 start, are all up and running and well on the way. So that's positive progress, and clearly going to eventually produce around about 40 council house properties, which are absolutely essential for this authority to produce. And the second one is just an update on the environmental 08, bringing the empty properties back into use. As you will see when you watch the next Bowls Over TV, myself and the portfolio holder, Sandra Peake, had the delight yesterday of a takeover of the 5 completed one-bedroom flats in the old co-op at Whitwell. So that's another completed target, and it's very, very exciting and very pleasing. So I'm glad to be able to share those with yourself, Kath, and of course with all members of the scrutiny panel. Thank you very much indeed.
And just that's really helpful, and thanks for doing the updates. Obviously, I'm reporting retrospectively, and it's great that you've got up-to-date information. You've shared that with the committee, so thanks for that. And it's good that it's positive news on both fronts. Regarding the COVID affected, that is a good point, and you're quite right. We have been using that marking system across all the targets. And I think it's because we brought across the 6 monthly ones quite late in the process that we've not used our usual coding on that. But it is a fair point. It clearly has been affected by COVID. So yes, I accept that, and we'll make sure we mainstream those in future going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Does somebody wish to speak then, Tom?
The next one that wanted to speak was Councillor Adams, Chair.
Right, Councillor Adams, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. Derek Adams, Bolsover South. Kath, thank you once again for that report. Couple of questions. The half-yearly target indicators, on the tangent, it's quite a way off. I realise it's going to get revised and that, but the actual, is there any reason for it being that much different? First and foremost, the actual target, because it's a long way short. I know it's only half yearly.
It is. I mean, the only information I've got is what was it under the exceptions. You just let me just double check that one. So I think it's under occupied, so they must have empty units. And I imagine that's been exacerbated by COVID, because obviously the council wants to keep those units fully occupied, doesn't it? So it may be that businesses have been facing financial difficulty, so they've obviously let the tenancy go, or we've been unable to fill empty units. But the other thing to bear in mind is that hired and contract services is charged for the full year. So that budget is showing a full year's worth of hired and contract services. So it's showing 12 months worth of cost at the half yearly point, and that's just the way that we budget it to make sure that that is covered in the budget. So at half yearly, the budgets can tend to look, they've got more costs than income in, so we usually have to wait for the out term to get a fair reflection of the picture. But obviously there has been a reduction in rent. Would you like me to get more of a breakdown for you, Councillor Adams, on that one?
Picking up on what Tom said, I'd like to have seen something here which actually reflects how much of this shortfall was caused by COVID. That'd be brilliant if that was showing.
Yeah, let me see. I can by all means go back to the relevant officer who was actually involved in the lettings. With this information has come from the budget, because we like to make sure we're giving members accurate information from the council's accounts. I can speak to the officer who deals with the actual lettings of this and get more of a flavour of the activity, and that will give members a bit more, probably a more rounded understanding. But yeah, happy to do that, Councillor Adams.
Yeah, thank you very much. The other one, as there's some invoices probably still outstanding. Is there any indication of how much invoice outstanding?
Once again, I can try and get some indication of that as to what the percentage is, or something that gives you a bit of a flavour of that. So I'll pick that up as part of the same piece of work.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Have we got anybody else wishing to speak, Tom?
Councillor David Dixon was the next one to speak, Chair.
Right, thank you. Councillor Dixon, if you'd like to come in, please, you'll be very welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yes, Kath, it's just EMV 08. The next to the last paragraph on there refers to a meeting at the end of October. I presume that has taken place. It says a meeting has been arranged for the end of October. So I'm assuming that that meeting has taken place regarding the council tax premium.
Yes, yes, it would have done, because these updates are sought at the end of the. Let me just check. So when the update was given, I'm just trying to think of the timing of that. So, well, I think when the update was given, it would be that the meeting was due to be held, but obviously in the time it's taken to feed this information back. So yes, I would have expected that meeting to have taken place, but let me confirm that and come back to you, Councillor Dixon, just to make sure that there's been no changes to that proposed meeting at the time the update was given.
Yeah, because it's saying that obviously that will be consulted upon for probably introduction in April.
Yeah, so we'll double check, because obviously we know that Revs and Bends, there's been a lot of additional work that's gone through to that team. So let me just make sure that that proposal is still on course around those timings, and I'll feed that back to you, Councillor Dixon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Tom, are there any other speakers wanting to come in?
Nobody else is indicating to speak, Chair.
All right, thank you for that. Well, in that case, then I'd like to thank Kath for their presentation and move the recommendations, please, on point 6 on the report on pages 27 of the papers. Can I ask,
Chair.
thank you very much, Councillor Munro. Can I have a show of hands for all in favour?
That's everybody in favour, Chair.
All right, well, thank you for that. And now we will move to item 8.
Chair, I think it's item 7.
Pardon?
It's item
7.
Housing strategy.
Oh, apology, my marking on the paper has gone through 7 as well. So, right, sorry about that. Page, we'd like to start item 7 on page 26, please.
Di Parker's here, Chair, to present this report.
When you're ready, Di, if you'd like to come in, please, that would be lovely.
Hello, everyone. I have done a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure if you can see a copy of that or not. If not, it doesn't matter. I can run through it from here and circulate it after the meeting.
Di, I will screen share the PowerPoint presentation right now if you want, and then
that would be perfect.
Yeah, if you just ask me to when you want me to move on the slide, and I'll just get it up on the screen now.
Perfect, thank you. Right, so basically, what I'm going to give you today is a completed draft, and it's a summary of the housing strategy. So basically, I've picked out key elements to give you an overview of what it's all about, because it is quite a large document. So that's what I'm going to go through today. So it's the housing strategy 2021 to 2024. Can I have the next slide, please? Right, so housing is a key factor in contributing to a person's health and well-being. It describes how the council plans to deliver the council's housing priorities. It is influenced by national and local policy initiatives. It will be for 3 years with a commitment to review after 1 year in light of any central government changes impacting on the local community. Because at this point, we don't actually know what's going to come in after COVID or what the government agenda is going to be like post-COVID era. Could I have the next slide, please? The key strategic housing priorities will be driven by the council's overarching ambitions. Next slide, please. So the 3 key priorities identified for the housing strategy is key priority 1, providing good quality housing. Key priority 2, enabling housing growth. And key priority 3, supporting vulnerable and disadvantaged people. Next slide, please. So key priority 1, providing good quality housing aims. So we aim to build new council housing, ensure design and quality to reduce the carbon footprint in the council and private sector. We aim to refurbish and regenerate existing council housing stock, make best use of council housing stock, and ensure quality in the private sector housing, including doing a stock condition survey, which I can tell you now that's already been completed, a private sector stock condition survey. Next slide, please. So how will we provide good quality housing? So we'll try and deliver 400 new homes through Bolsover Homes. We'll seek opportunities to increase the council's housing stock under Section 106 agreements, which we are already doing a majority of these things anyway, but we will continue to do them. We'll aim to create sustainable communities, low carbon and sustainable developments, and protect the district's heritage sites, which is quite important when we are looking at development opportunities around the district. We'll reduce the district's carbon impact and improve the neighbourhoods to make pockets of land more inspiring. So this could be just simple things like planting trees or flowers or wild pieces of flowers for bees and things like that. Refurbishment to council's owned stock and seek funding opportunities for any future projects. Next slide, please. We'll continue with the refurbishment programme, shelters, housing schemes. Continue with the decent home programme. Identify and assess difficult to let properties, rectify any issues highlighted. We'll work with the private sector to deliver affordable private rented homes. We'll promote a healthy private rented sector and hold annual landlord events. These have been very good in the past. We've had a number of these. And we'll develop a private sector strategy and action plan. And that's on back of the stock condition survey as well. Next slide, please. Key priority 2, enabling housing growth. So we'll aim for regeneration. We'll support local plan for Bolsover district and the 5-year housing supply. We'll work in partnership to enable housing growth. We'll bring empty properties back into use. We'll support custom and self-build, and we'll support gypsy and traveller sites. Next slide, please. So how will we enable housing growth? We'll strengthen housing links in the council's regeneration framework. We'll build the right properties in the right places to meet local housing need. We'll identify infill sites for development opportunities. And the housing strategy will support the local plan, including its key objectives: to provide housing that address the need of all sectors, to improve existing housing stock and promote lifetime homes, to help to build, expand communities rather than just providing new housing. Next slide, please. We'll work in partnership to enable housing growth, including working with Dragonfly Homes, Homes England, private developers and registered providers. We'll bring empty properties back into use. I know we've just discussed this, so developing an empty property strategy, which has already been developed now just. We'll increase housing through custom and self-build programme, identifying sites for that. Improve existing affordable housing and build new affordable housing homes, and support gypsy and traveller sites. Got that on twice. Next slide, please. So key priority 3, supporting vulnerable and disadvantaged people. So we'll aim to prevent and relieve homelessness, enable supported housing and housing with care for people with physical disabilities, mental ill health, domestic violence and complex needs. Older people's housing accommodation and support. We'll support care leavers. We'll support the armed forces personnel and their families, and we'll continue with the disabled facility grant and home improvement and energy efficiency initiatives. Next slide, please. So how will we support vulnerable and disadvantaged people? We'll continue to provide effective support for people who are homeless or threatened with homelessness, but also seek funding opportunities. In the post-COVID era as well, we're hoping that there could be more help there. We'll develop a North Derbyshire homelessness strategy. This is working with other local authorities across Derbyshire. Work with Derbyshire County Council to increase the number of supported and special housing in the district. They've got their housing strategies that they've done now as well for supporters, so we're actually working with them to get things moving to build properties in the district. We'll support the community safety partnership teams. We'll continue to provide support to victims of domestic abuse and through the dedicated officer, including help to secure settled accommodation. And older people's housing, refurbish council housing stock and work with partners and developers to create more accessible properties, including lifetime homes. Next slide, please. We'll promote the council's care line and support service. We'll work in partnership to develop a Derbyshire Care Leavers Covenant and review and refresh joint working protocols. We'll continue to support the armed forces personnel and their families in line with the signed covenant. We'll continue to seek funding opportunities to help households access affordable warmth, energy efficiency interventions. And we'll continue to carry out adaptations to council-owned stock and disabled facilities grants in the private sector. Next slide, please. So the delivery of the strategy, an action plan will be developed to enable the delivery of the strategy and will be monitored by the council's housing strategy team. Internal resources together with effective partnership working will be key, and agencies will enable the delivery of the strategy. We'll source available funding and procure external funding through joint partnership working and maximise national and local bidding opportunities as they arise. That's different projects as they come in. Next slide, please. So the next steps, we've got public consultation. We're hoping after this meeting, if you agree to public consultation, that'll be from rest of December through to January, and that will be online via Ask Derbyshire website, BDC website and emailing. Then hopefully it will go to executive in February 2021, and then we'll get it designed up so it looks nice, and we'll put some pictures in there to break big chunks of writing up so it looks better. And is there any questions?
Has anybody got any questions? Tom, anybody indicated?
Chair, Councillor Tom Kirkham and Councillor Mary Dooley have their hands raised.
Right, thank you. Tom, Kirkham, if you would like to come in first, please.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks, Di, for that presentation. You mentioned that Dragonfly and Bolsover Homes are there as part of the strategy to respond in terms of the volume of the houses that we create for social and private housing. But what is the relationship between this strategy and both those two schemes? Does this strategy, for instance, help shape what kind of homes Bolsover Homes are going to deliver with respect to demand in specific areas?
Well, basically, the housing strategy, it works across all the departments, and it's to give external organisation an indication of what we're doing as a housing authority. So basically, it's highlighted in the strategy. Now, when it comes to looking at housing need, the Housing Strategy Department can or does look at housing need within the communities and within wards to see what is needed where. But Bolsover Homes, Ian Barber is on with that at the moment, and that's all been looked at. I've got all that information from Ian Barber's team, but it needs to be put in the strategy to highlight what we are actually doing. But the strategy itself won't impact that. Does that answer that question?
So at the moment then, Bolsover Homes won't come to your strategy or won't be part of this consultation to determine, for instance, what are the best houses to build on a specific patch of land to react to the housing need in the area?
Well, I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm going to have to get back to you, have a word with Ian Barber and see if that piece of work has already been done, because I'm presuming if they've already highlighted what they're building where, that piece of work should have already been done.
And that work would have been done, I suppose, in relation to the previous housing strategy that was developed.
Yes, it should have been done. Because basically, when you're looking at building houses, you've got to determine what is needed in that area. It's no good building something that isn't actually needed, because we've got to fill it, we've got to tenant it, and we've got to look at the district and the communities in that area to build what they need, what they want, especially with supported housing as well. It goes to the same. I mean, we need supported housing across the district for younger people, for older people, for people with complex needs, for mental health. So we'd look in different areas of that. And so if you want to put something, if we've got a piece of land and we want to put something on that piece of land, but there isn't a need for it there, maybe we ought to look somewhere else where there is a need for it. Do you see?
Yeah.
So with Bolsover Homes, I know they're on site at some places, and so development has already commenced. So basically, they would have already done that piece of work to look at that, to see what is needed in that area and build what is needed.
Okay, and for all future developments, they'll do that work as well, you would presume?
Yeah. I mean, we already do that work. We're just highlighting it in the strategy that we do that work. We look at housing need across the district, even private developers as well. When a private developer wants to build something in the district, then our team looks at what we do actually need as well. And so we're working with the developers to say, well, actually, we need so much affordable housing on this site, and we need like 2-bedroom houses, or we need bungalows or whatever. So we're doing it across tenure as well.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think Ian Barber would also like to participate in that discussion. He's got his hand up, Chair.
Gladly.
Yeah. Yes, please bring him in and welcome him in.
Yeah, just in answer to your question, Councillor Kirkham, before any site moves forward as part of the design phase, we liaise with colleagues in housing needs to identify the demand for that area. So the work that we're doing Bolsover Homes at the moment, we've got a number of sites, and we've already sat down with housing to identify possible house types that could be put on each of those sites, and more importantly, house types that definitely don't want to be put on those sites.
Thank you. Does the same process happen for Dragonfly as well? I know that they're commercial properties, but I guess you have to do some kind of economic modelling, don't you, with respect to need?
Yeah, it's slightly different for Dragonfly in that, as you say, we're building them for commercial sales. So we look at what's missing from that area or what sells in that area and try and put a better product there.
Okay, thanks very much.
But Dragonfly is driven by the ethos of we try and develop in areas where other people haven't, and by developing and selling, that encourages other developers into an area and improves it as a whole. So slightly different model, but yeah. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. Are there any more people wanting to ask any questions?
Chair, the next one to speak was Councillor Mary Dooley.
Right. Would you like to come in, Mary, please?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah. There's one on disabled facilities grant, that when we assess our residents, when they are assessed, it could take up to 2 years to come to fruition. And I'd like to see that shortened by at least, 16 months really, because in the past, we have had residents that's died and waiting for a stair lift. So I'd like to see that, Ian, done with the disabled facilities grant. I don't know whether you'd like to comment on that.
Thanks, Councillor Dooley. In terms of the DFGs, they are managed through environmental health because they're for private properties. In terms of Bolsovers, adaptations that they carry out to our council properties, I think the waiting list for those sort of adaptations is significantly shorter than that.
Thanks, Ian. My second one is about the Warm Home Fund. How many houses have we got left to fit gas boilers and bring these up to standard?
Again, I think that could be, is that you, Ian, again?
Yes, that'll be Ian.
There's very few left now, actually, but let me get you an actual figure, and then you've got the sort of fact rather than my perception. But I know that we're very close to having almost all the sort of eco boilers in now.
Ian, how many are left then? What's the total? Because this has been going on for quite a long time. I wondered how many was left.
Yeah, I'll need to get the figure for you, Councillor Dooley. I haven't got the exact figure off the top of my head.
Right. Thanks, Ian. Thank you. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dooley. Have we all commenced now?
Chair, Councillor David Dixon was next to speak.
Oh, right. Sorry, David. Would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Di, just looking at the private sector, it looks a bit appalling, really, that we've got, 1,400 houses that fall below the standards, and do we know what percentage of these landlords are Dash accredited?
No, we don't, unfortunately. We do try and promote the Dash and do these landlord events to try and get the quality up. But the private sector could be owner occupiers as well, you see. It's not just private landlords. The owner occupier homes as well. You're looking at the stock condition survey part, are you, of the strategy? Yeah. It goes across tenure on that for owner occupiers and private landlords. So I couldn't tell you how much are Dash accredited at the moment. I might be able to get you a figure of how many landlords we've got that are Dash accredited in the district.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking as a percentage of that, and whether, I don't know, it just seems, we're saying we have a legal duty to keep the conditions of the homes in the area under review.
Yeah.
Well, that's fairly meaningless, really, isn't it?
Well, that's where the stock condition survey comes in. We've got an obligation to do a private sector stock condition survey every so many years, and so that's why one's been done at the moment. So now we've got to do an action plan on that, on how we're going to address them issues and what we can actually do to address them issues. I know for owner occupiers, there's not a lot the council can do in terms if they don't want it done or they don't want to, for example, they could actually be entitled to some form of grant to make their properties warmer or safer. But if they don't want to engage in that, we can't do anything about it. But we can actually, I know that Environmental Health goes out and sees people that might be entitled to these sort of schemes and grants grant funding. So if they engage with us, then we can help them and bring their properties up to a decent homes or a decent standard. But if they don't want to engage, we can't do anything about it. But one piece of work will be trying to target these properties and see what we can do to help them, and by helping them to get grants or things like that, you see. So hopefully it could be a good piece of work that comes out of it, and hopefully we can get these standards raised a little bit, these properties.
I know I'm, you know, environmental health helping in one area of Barbara that we've got, but overall, I mean, so when are you going to have this action plan put into place?
For the housing strategy or the stock condition survey?
The stock condition survey.
Once the housing strategy has gone through, and then we can start focusing on the strands coming from the strategy, so we can start doing an action plan. So hopefully middle of next year, I would imagine.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, the fact that we're so powerless to you know, get something done about some of these houses. They're absolutely, I mean, we've seen some absolutely atrocious, and yet they seem to get away with it, and people are living in these awful conditions. Okay, thank you, Di.
Thank you. Tom?
The last one to speak, Chair, was Councillor Jim Clifton.
Right. Would you like to come in, Jim, please?
Thank you, Chair. Questions for Ian, please, Chair. Morning, Ian.
Morning.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. When you're speaking about looking to develop areas and plots of land, etc., and types of properties required, and you have your discussions, where in the process do you involve the local member, please?
There is quite a lengthy process where members are consulted when we have schemes in place for a district or an area. So towards the end, where we know we've got a scheme, we know what we're doing, we'll then come and speak to local members. So in the case of Whitwell, we met with Councillor Munro, and at the time Councillor Ritchie, went through the schemes, talked about them, and we actually did a consultation event in that situation at the village hall with invited sort of local residents to come along and see it. And throughout the process or the design process, there are Councillor Liz Smith and Councillor Sandra Peake sit on the design team meetings. So we have that sort of feed in from them, but there isn't a formal at the start of the process. What's housing demand? You know, we wouldn't approach you in terms of a housing demand. We go to housing for that.
If I could come back, Chair, please.
Yes, certainly, Jim. Yes.
Yeah. I'm referring to these small pockets of land as well, please, Ian, where we do these infills on garage sites, etc. Where local member involvement would have saved quite a bit of time if the member had been involved, because he knew the area and the development was unsuitable, but the local member was never involved in discussions with regard to the development.
Have you got a specific example, please, Councillor Clifton?
I have, yes. Morven Street garage development.
Morven Street?
Cresswell.
I'm not aware of us undertaking a development at Morven Street.
Well, the application has now been withdrawn.
Is it? I think because as well as the work we're doing through Bolsover Homes, there was also a separate piece of work that looked at the council's land and uses for it, which was directed, I think, through member requests. And what we did was we decided whether a piece of land was suitable for Bolsover Homes to look at, whether it was suitable for another use within the council, so for biobanking, or you know, whether the garages were well used, so we kept them, or whether we disposed of the land. And if we were going to dispose of it, that list of sites, that went through a process with planning colleagues where we looked at whether we could get planning permission on it and sell it with an LDO. So I imagine that this is one of those sites where it was done as an exercise to get additional value for the authority when selling that piece of land.
Okay, thank you.
But I take your point, and it's something we can try and build into the process.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Tom?
I don't think that's nobody else indicating to speak, Chair.
Right. So, do I need to get this seconded, proposed and seconded, or just noted?
Am I okay to go to public consultation next step?
That's the recommendation, Chair, that it's approved for consultation.
Right. What do members wish to do about this? What do you want to vote?
Well, if I may, Chair.
Yes, definitely.
Tom Munro, Whitwell Ward, if you look on page 27, there's a recommendation that we approve the first draft of the housing strategy 21 to 24 to be in a wider consultation process, and I'm happy, Chair, to move that course of action.
Thank you, Tom. I'd not got that.
I'll second that, Chair.
Perfect. Thank you. Could I have a show of hands for all in favour, please?
All in favour, Chair.
Right. Thank you for that, then, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and thank you for your report. If I'm right this time, hopefully, item 8.
Yes.
Commences on page 71, then, please.
Is Ian going to present it?
Tom, is there anybody there?
Yeah.
Who's going to present?
Are you, Chair? I'm happy to present it. It was, or just take questions if members have had a chance to look at the report submitted. Because these were in response to queries raised by the group. So I can go through the reasons for my answers if that would be useful.
Would be interesting, yes. What does would anybody else think this? Or are you happy just to accept the report?
It's not a report.
Sorry, Tom, yes, Wim?
Sorry, Chair. So it's the last two parts of a scrutiny, isn't it, of this balls over homes that we're looking at now. My questions are just, and we've touched upon them earlier with respect to how we sort of link it in with the social need for the housing. And the other bit is really around how we can go forward looking at, I suppose we could probably follow this up in the bits at the end of the informal, but I suppose that's when we draw the conclusions, isn't it?
Yes, that's fine, if you're okay with that.
Yep.
Right. Tom, are you there?
Which Tom are you talking about?
The officer.
I'll just make an observation, if I may, Chair, because I've read through the report, and I kind of thank Ian for the detail in the report. Just to make the observation under page 73, where there's talk about link with various education institutions. So the latest build out, i.e. in Whitwell, and I am fully aware that the contractor Woodheads are now in discussions and development with the primary school in terms of developing a suitable participation on Woodhead's part to assist the education of the primary children. So just a little update there.
That's lovely. It's a good update as well, Tom.
Okay.
We need more of those coming forward, don't we?
Yeah.
Right, so are we ready to move on to item 9 now then?
Okay, you just need to move that you're going to note the report.
Right. I'd like to move that we move the report.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Could I have a show of hands from members?
It's all in favour, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll turn to item 9 on page 77 then, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is just your work programme. As you know, it's an evolving document. You've already got on there your extra informal meeting on the 22nd of January, which has been referred to earlier, with Chris Riddington coming to talk about the growth strategy. 17th of February, you've got a further update on the ambitions performance. 17th of March, the growth strategy, and this is provisional, is back to you. Other things will be added to this, particularly when we're looking at the reviews you're doing and what other sessions are needed and who is needed to come to the meetings. That's all, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to comment on that? All right. So, Tom, where are we next?
You need to move to note it, Chair.
Right, thank you, Sarah. Councillor Wilson will move it to be noted.
I'll second it.
Can I have a show of hands for all in favour?
It's all in favour, Chair.
Thank you, everybody. Right, where are we on 10 now? Review work.
Chair, you need to close the formal part of the meeting and await for the light.
Sorry about this. It's not quite the same when you stood on your own in the windowsill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Can I just
Yes.
interrupt? Sorry.
No, no.
Right. Is it possible to pay a bit of a tribute to James Watson before we close?
Yeah, Chair.
Yes, yes.
All right, thanks.
But
I was going to try and do it at the start, but I only wrote a couple of words. Is it okay if we just read them out quickly?
yes, go on, Tom.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks.
all right.
James, as you know, helped us with a few things on this stuff that happened in Glatwell. So I wrote this. I'd like to pay tribute to Councillor James Watson, and I got to know him through his work on this Growth Scrutiny Committee. James was a Labour member before he went independent, and he would have been an asset to the Labour group on the council. But somehow we lost him in Pinxton, but he rose to become a much loved local councillor. And I've been looking at a lot of the tributes paid to him by people in his ward. And not only did he work hard for those people, but he also put his money where his mouth was to support the local causes. Reflecting on James's work, you can say he was truly independent. I think he must hold the record for abstentions on this council. And that is purely through to his high standards and his lack of satisfaction in the way things are done. Councillor Walker mentioned in a previous tribute that he seemed to be holding the council to account single-handedly at times. And to be fair, and I put myself into this bracket, that, you know, I sat on my hands sometimes and often left him to it. James gave us support in our ward when we called in the decision to sell the land in Glatwell. And I'm glad to say we won that 9-1 on this committee. We managed to convince people of our arguments. But James really did turbocharge that case that we was making. I believe he was a real asset to this council. He was a friend, and he was a support to Councillor Clough's husband, David, as he was dying. And then James was only tragically to follow him pretty too soon. But I'm sure both are now looking down on his willingness to do a good job. So in summary, James was dedicated to scrutinising the work of this council to make it a better, more inclusive place for future councillors and further for the people we represent. And as with many others on this council, I remember him, and I will remember him by trying to reach his standards with my work on this committee and in the council as a whole. So, James, I wish you rest in peace, and we will miss you. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that. That was a lovely tribute, and I think we'll all be in agreement with you on that, and hope his family will keep well. Is anybody else wishing to come in? Right. Am I right now we're on the informal part, or are we on work programme? Sarah?
We've done the work programme. You're just on the closing down the formal meeting so that we can move into informal sessions.
We need to close the live stream down, Chair. so we can
Right.
move into the informal part.
Okay, at this point then, I'd like to close the live stream down and move into our informal meeting, please.